And hello, Hearts of Oak. Thank you so much for joining us once again on a news review at the end of a interesting week. And I'm delighted to have joining us once again, first time doing news review, and that's Nick Buckley. Nick, thank you so much for your time today.
You're welcome. Thank you for the invite.
Oh, great to have you on. Lots to cover. But first of all, the first thing to cover is yourself, and that is your Twitter at Nick Buckley MBE. Make sure and you're following Nick and also his Substack, nickbuckleymbe.substack.com. We'll touch on one of those Substack titles. And of course, you're working on building up your YouTube channel. I'll just mention that and then we'll jump into the stories, Nick.
Sure, my YouTube channel is doing really well. This last 2 months, it's gone from 3,000 subscribers to almost 10,000 subscribers. We should hit 10,000 this weekend, which is amazing. It's going really well. So all my social media, all my accounts is Nick Buckley MBE. So find it on YouTube, subscribe. Daily videos, 2-3 videos a day, discussing everything you want to be discussed and talking about it in an honest, adult conversation.
We need some more adult conversation in the room where there are actually no adults in the government anymore, but we'll get into all of that. The first one, I think nearly all of these I think are taken from your Twitter feed, so it gives the viewers and listeners an idea of kind of the stuff you cover, which kind of fits into really what we cover and looks at the chaos that we currently face. And the first one is NHS tells staff to ask men if they're pregnant before x-rays as part of inclusivity drive. This is from the Evening Standard. The controversial policy, I'm glad the Evening Standard realizes it's controversial, has sparked outrage among patients and campaigners. And this was about 5 or 6 days ago. It came out. I would be quite concerned, Nick, if I went to the hospital and I was asked if you're pregnant. I would think I need someone with a higher IQ. But what were your thoughts when you read this?
This was expected. This is just a doubling down of this woke gender ideology that's under attack now everywhere. And the people who believe in this lunacy are just doubling down. Of course, there's a risk to women who pretend to be men, who go for an x-ray dressed like a man, speaking like a man, pretending to be a man, who may be pregnant. So there's a risk to them. I understand that. And even though these people are mentally ill, I do not want to expose them or their growing babies inside to any harm. So, but that's down to them to be able to say to the medical staff, just to let you know, I am a man, but I was assigned female at birth. And they should be warning those medical staff that I'm a bit different. I'm a bit special. Because isn't this what it's all about? Letting people know you're special and you're different. So tell them you're different and you're special, and then we can make sure you get the service that's appropriate for your biological condition. But going the other way of asking all men, are you pregnant? And then where does this end? So do we have to ask people with no legs, are you disabled? Because I'd hate to make you stand up when I can see no legs, but I then presume you've got no legs just in case you identify as fully able. Where does this lunacy stop? I'll tell you where it stops. It stops with the death of people when it could have been prevented. It stops at the damaging people that could have been prevented. And it stops at our NHS crumbling into dust. It's halfway there already. Haven't they got serious problems they need to be addressing? I'll tell you what, this isn't one of them.
Oh, completely. And I actually, when I read it, I thought, wow, I'm thinking if my older boy went for a checkup at the GP surgery around the corner, would actually he be asked if you're pregnant? I mean, this is a question that could actually add to the confusion the kids face with the education system. If they get asked a question, they'll take this as a normal question. So it doesn't sound like medical treatment. It sounds like further on indoctrination.
That's exactly what it is. It's indoctrination propaganda. Because the more we speak about this, especially to young people, the more likely they are to think this is the social norm. So therefore, this is acceptable. And that's how you change a nation. You change a nation by changing the young people, because then they give up thinking that's normal. And this isn't normal. It's damaging society. It's damaging children. We need to stop it now. That's not to say we stop people identifying in the sex and gender they want to identify, because I don't care. I want to live in a society where you're free to do what you want as an adult. You're free to damage yourself as an adult, but don't expect the state and tax money to help you damage yourself. And that's my problem with this.
Oh, completely. So it fits into your to your Substack article, which I'll let you know if you wanted to fit that in, but I'll leave that to you. This is one of your latest Substack articles. Again, give people a flavor of what they will find. Laws of the stupid. They're all around us. We've all met them. We've all worked with them. We have a friend or family member who is one. They seem to be everywhere. And the older you become, the better you are at spotting them. I'm, of course, talking about stupid people. And a wonderful quote from the Talmud: never tell a fool that he is a fool. All you will have is an angry fool. Do you want me to just touch on this article and then generally kind of what you're putting together on Substack?
Sure. So Substack are intelligent researched articles of problems, of things I'm thinking about. So I'll wake up in the middle of the night, which I did last month, and I went, why are we getting so many female paedophiles recently? Why does it seem that female school teachers seem to be sleeping with the pupils? And I go, I'm going to research that tomorrow when I get half an hour. I'm going to write an article on that. And that's what I do. And that article, the stupidity article, came out today. I started writing it yesterday. And then the next day I look over it because I may have made some mistakes. But yesterday I was thinking, the state of the country, the state of all our public services. And we know why they're crumbling. It's because of DAI indoctrination. It's box ticking in recruitment. And the more I thought about it, the more, but these people are not stupid, are they? And I thought, maybe they are. Maybe we're giving these stupid people some credit. So I did a quick Google search and found somebody in the 70s wrote an article, a scientific article on the laws of stupidity. And I read that and went, I'm going to write about this. And that's what that one was about.
So you're telling me, and I find the same issue, being involved in media. I had it a bit in politics, but never as much as I have in media, where you go to bed at night and you end up thinking about all these issues because you want to bring a perspective, a common sense understanding, and you feel a responsibility as an audience grows. And you're thinking, how do I actually connect my audience with this issue? So I'm glad you're getting the same sleepless nights on thinking of these issues as I am.
Yeah, I think my philosophy is, I know I'm stupid. Well, sorry, let's not use the word stupid because that's that article. I know I'm uneducated. I know there's so much stuff I don't understand and don't know about. I know there's things out there that I don't even know is a topic, is a discussion, is a field of research. I know my limitations. And every now and again, I say to myself, I don't want to be this uneducated. And that's when I go, I'm going to look into this. And if I feel like this, and if I don't know these things, I can guarantee there's other people out there who don't know these things. So not only is it education for me, most of my work is trying to, it's not to educate people, because who am I to educate someone else? I'm a nobody. But my aim is to make you think, is to make you read something and go, I didn't know that, or I don't agree with that for these reasons, or that's going to make me think differently because of that point and that research. That's my aim, is to make people think better, not to educate them.
And of course, that is the biggest issue that we face, isn't it, Nick? Just before we move on to the next story, that people don't think it's less that people are unintelligent. We've seen many intelligent people jump onto the COVID tyranny track. It's simply that people aren't even thinking. They're simply curtailed and constrained by what they're told, and they're not even thinking. I was just trying to shake people and say, please think.
And that's a status quo. That's a status quo in most humans, and it always has been through our history of hundreds of thousands of years. We're tribal creatures. We're designed to do as we're told by the tribal leader. We're designed to believe what they say and follow their lead. Because if we didn't, that tribe would be in turmoil and it would be destroyed. You can't have a tribe full of leaders. You can't have a tribe full of people always challenging the orthodoxy, because nothing would work. You'd end up at each other's throats. You only can handle 1 or 2 people like that in a tribe of 50, 100 people. So therefore, even if you're highly intelligent, most people will still do as they're told, will still do what the government tells them to do, will still believe what they're told is the truth, because it's the only way to get through life. And we can't question everything all the time. We can't question, will this paracetamol work? Will my car start? Is this spot propaganda? We have to take some things at face value just to get through the day. But that doesn't mean you have to take everything at face value. Some things we need to push back and we need to challenge. And maybe not everybody, but some of us, that's our duty. And I think it's my duty as well to push back on some of these things.
Oh, completely. Let's go to a video you put up, which touches on immigration and I think touches on identity. But let me play this first. Now, this was, your tweet said this was an area you grew up in South Manchester. What were your thoughts? I mean, when you see something like this happening in somewhere that you begin to think of it in a different way than if it's just the media throwing up a video somewhere in the world.
Again, that video doesn't surprise me. This has been going on for decades. I live literally 2 minutes down the road from that place. That's called Wilmslow Road, the Covey Mile in Rusholme. My family still live in the house I grew up in. Doesn't surprise me. And that's not the issue. The issue for me is, at this moment in time, our communities are rubbing against each other. And we've seen riots on the streets. And what we don't need is, we don't need white hooligans throwing bricks at the police and burning down libraries and setting fire to hotels. But we also don't need other communities who have not integrated rubbing our noses in it, that, look, we're here and we don't feel English and we pretend that we're not English, we're Pakistani. And we left Pakistan once it became independent because we didn't want to live in a country run by Pakistanis. We wanted to come to a country run by English people. And now we're here. We want our area to be Little Pakistan. And we're going to celebrate Pakistani Independence Day because we feel Pakistani, not English. And this is a good example of our failed integration in the UK. This is a good example of failed multiculturalism, where you can live side by side with people and you don't think you're the same as them. You think you're better than them. You think you're different to them. And you would rather celebrate a foreign holiday than celebrate a traditional English holiday. These people don't come out and celebrate St. George's Day. These people didn't come out and show condolences when our late Queen died. Because these people have a British passport, but don't feel English and tell us they're not English. They tell us in that clip, we're Pakistanis. And I don't want to live with Pakistanis. I want to live with English people. And English people may be Muslim. English people may have brown skin, but they're still English. I don't want to live with foreigners in my country. And that's what that clip is celebrating. And if we don't get a grip of this, I foresee mass violence. We've had a little taste a couple of weeks ago, but that's the future of this country. If politicians who are not stupid don't get a grip of this, multiculturalism only leads in one direction, and it's mass violence and murder. We've seen it in too many countries. We've seen it in Rwanda, 1 million people hacked to death with machetes. We've seen it in Yugoslavia. We've seen it in Nazi Germany. We've seen it all over the world, and it will come here if we don't get a grip.
And I echo what you say. This is not about color or ethnicity or religion. This is about identity and connecting with where you are. And I've been in London 22 years, but come from Northern Ireland where you celebrate identity. We clash over it and have wars over it, but you celebrate that identity. Then you come here and I think, what do you mean you don't celebrate St. George's Day? And that's really surprised me. The conversations I've had in London, now London isn't an English city anymore, of course, but the conversations I have with people, and people are oblivious to the fact that actually they don't even celebrate the identity of their own nation. But it's lack of integration, and London is a ghettoized city, and I think that's the problem we're having across the UK. We're having these ghettos, which is where the clashes come from.
This is a multi-complex topic about the English and our lack of identity and our lack of preserving, and preserving our identity. And I've come to the conclusion it's over many things. So it's about stupid people, stupid politicians. It's also about weak men. Weak men damage their country. It's strong men who protect the country, protect tradition, protect children, protect women. And we don't have that anymore. And then I think this began 100 years ago with a feeling of English superiority. This is the greatest country ever to exist. We modernized the world. We conquered a quarter of the world, and we looked down upon everybody else. And we pretended that their cultures, their countries were better than they really were. And we pretended they were to make them feel better. A little bit like we do with the Paralympics. We cheer the Paralympics, partly because we feel sorry for these people, they're disabled. Another part of us makes us feel better. Oh, you've got no legs, you're amazing. Yeah, they're amazing for what they can do, but that's not why we celebrate the Paralympics. Same with children's sports days. You're all winners, all get a certificate. And the English went for a phase 100 years ago of doing that to other countries to make them feel better because we knew we were superior. And then things changed over the last 100 years that we don't celebrate our culture now. We're a beige country. We have no culture. But do you know what? We really do. And do you know what our culture is? It's called world culture. That's why no one can ever identify English culture. It's because it's been adopted basically by the world. So when we look at what the world does, well, that's English, that's England, that's our culture. And we don't realise that. And then on top of that, weak men, stupid people. And England is dying, and we can see it dying. And the question I ask myself all the time, and I tell people to ask themselves, if England fails, where do the English go? Because many people in this country have got a second home and can go somewhere else. Where do the English go?
Oh, completely. And we'll touch on some of what's happening with the sentencing. But obviously, you've stood for political office, and I understand being involved in UKIP for 5 years and looking to find a political solution to what's happening. What's kind of happened over the last 2 to 3 weeks, especially with the lack of opposition? Well, Elon Musk is the opposition to the British government. But how do you see that? Because I have always been hopeful that there's a political solution to injustices and division and wrongdoing in society. At the moment, there doesn't necessarily seem to be one. I think Reform haven't grasped this and haven't been a voice, have gauged public opinion as opposed to jumping in and saying what they think. And I think that's been one of Nigel's failings in the last couple of weeks. But how do you assess it? The kind of rise of people coming out and saying, well, we have no voice in politics, therefore we need to come out publicly and stand up. That kind of street demos, that public demonstration, it's not necessarily the norm in the UK. How have kind of you perceive what's happened over the last couple of weeks?
This is the beginning of change. The lid now is off the jar. That lid's never going back on again. I can understand, and I don't condone the violence, but I can understand why people got involved in the violence. And we all can understand why people went on the streets in the first place. If you live in a democracy and you want change, you vote for change. You make political parties do the things you want them to do. But the question is, what do you do in a democracy that Every time you vote for change, every time you vote for what the politicians tell you they're going to do on your behalf, every time you vote and get them into office, they then do the complete opposite of what they promised you. So all the way from my lifetime, every government has said we're going to reduce immigration. From Blair to Cameron to Boris Johnson to Sunak and now to Keir Starmer, every single one of them is on public record saying we're going to reduce immigration. And every single one of them has done a 180 and increased immigration. What do you do in a democracy when that happens? Well, you have to rebel. You have to go on the streets. And some people will turn to violence because it's a rebellion. What else can you do? People are thinking, we've tried your way. I've taken part in democracy. I voted in general elections. I voted in democratic referendums. And every time I do it, you tell me I'm scum. You tell me I'm wrong. And then you do the opposite of what you said you were going to do. That isn't called a democracy. That's called the appearance, the illusion of democracy. Because it doesn't matter who you vote for, you're going to get what we're going to do. That isn't a democracy. So that's why people are on the streets. Keir Starmer will do nothing about this because he's part of the problem, just like the last 30 years. All politicians of all colours are the problem. This would have happened if Tories were still in power. Labour are just unfortunate that Southport killing happened on their watch, because this would have happened no matter who was in government. So what can the people do? Well, turning straight to violence isn't the answer. Violence eventually is the answer. If we can't get change and we vote for change, we can't get it, but that's decades away. The people need to organise, and we need to start making sure our voices are heard, and we need to be on the streets more, just like Free Palestine, just like Black Lives Matter. And we need to ensure we're non-violent. And when the police treat us appallingly, we capture it on video. And then the world can see how we're treated by the British police when we're not committing violence, when we're using our democratic rights to demonstrate and protest. And then politicians, because let's not forget, what does a politician want? All politicians only want one thing, and that's our vote, is to be in power. If we can mobilise and they see we're the majority and we can make them win elections, politicians will change overnight what they're promising and what they will do. So the politician only wants to be in power, and that's how we change it. It's changing now. It's going to take at least a decade. The next election, it won't be 5 years from now. It'll be less than that. Labour won't survive. But the next election will be purely an immigration election. The last one was a little bit on immigration, but this one would be purely on immigration. Reform would have built up more support then. There might be other players in the field by then. And then the election after that will be where change starts happening. So we're looking about a decade before we get real change. But we're on this road now. It's definitely coming. There's no going back. The people have been awoken now and can see what's going on. And they're fed up. And we're still a little bit timid at the moment because we don't want to be called hurty words. And we're a little bit timid because we don't want to be sent for jail for a tweet. But stronger people will come through, and people like me, not hopeful I'll go to jail, but people like me will go, I'm not changing what I tweet about. And if I've got to get locked up, I'll be locked up. But I'm not changing because I'm not a coward. I'll still be polite. I'll still be sensible. I'm not changing. I'm not saying I'll be the same person I was 2 years ago that I will be 2 years from now. And if that means you've made new laws where suddenly I'm a criminal, then I'm a criminal. But I'm not for changing. I'm not for being a coward. And that's how we'll get the change. And maybe we can speed up a few years, but it's coming. I can feel it. I can smell it in the air.
Oh, I couldn't agree with you more. I saw a meme recently that said racist, and the definition, someone who has won an argument against a liberal, because that's what you get tagged whenever there are no arguments and words left. Names are thrown at you. Here's one that you put up from GB News, and it's a hugely concerning, and fits in what you said, Nick. This following on from what we have in place now as government has just speeded up the chaos and destruction that we have under the Tories. It was no better under them. And they're continuing this. The Tories first introduced these restrictions around abortion clinics, that you could not be involved in interfering, and that was also regarded as prayer. Now Labour want to codify that. Silent prayer and safe zones outside abortion clinics could be banned under Home Office's latest plans. I never dreamed I would see a British government actually making prayer legal, which is the most essential part of any Christian. But yeah, we have it here. But as you said, Nate, this is, I guess, to be expected. And I guess the police will have to police tweets, but also have to police prayer.
A silent prayer, that's basically now going to be a thought crime. We now have the police literally policing our thoughts. And this is, I mean, we use the word Orwellian all the time, but, this really is Orwellian. This is 1984. It's a thought crime. People in our country now, for decades, have thought the abortion issue was settled. People thought we all agreed. We didn't agree. It's just that we didn't have social media and we didn't discuss it. But many people hate abortion, can see it purely as a murder, can see it as a stain on our society, and can see it in the history books being referred to worse than a transatlantic slave trade. And that's what it is. In the UK, we're murdering 250,000 babies a year, just in the UK. 250,000. And no one says anything. And I don't want to go to a stage where we start bombing abortion clinics or killing people who practice abortion, because, again, I don't condone that sort of violence. But this is legitimate concern in our country. And abortion is right back at the top of national discussion now. And abortion laws will be changed in this country in my lifetime. It will be severely restricted, and it's coming down the pipeline. Because I don't see how anybody can justify what we're doing. And I cannot see how other people can't see it's mass murder. Now, the 1 and 2 extreme cases is still wrong, but I can understand their description there, such as how would a 14-year-old girl feel being raped by her father and have to carry that child? That's horrendous. That's horrendous for that girl. I don't know what the right answer is for her. I don't know if it is abortion or not abortion. I've not got an answer to that. I'm not clever enough. But I can tell you one thing for sure. That baby's not evil. That baby did nothing wrong. But that's one of the extreme examples. I get that. But to say, and I've met women like this, who say, oh, just found out I'm pregnant and I'm going skiing in 3 months' time. So I won't have an abortion because I don't want it to ruin my skiing holiday. That is some of the excuses we're using to abort living babies in this country. Absolutely appalling.
It is, and I could talk to you about this for hours. To me, it's my red line as a Christian. I don't know how anyone can accept this. And you talk about the rape instances, which is me 0.1% or 0.2%, and instead of legislating for 99%, making exceptions, we do the other way around. But the figures are, I think, 600,000 live births in the UK. So if you put the 2 to 250,000, you've got 850,000. So it is 1/3 of conceptions that actually end up. So actually, birth is the most dangerous place. If you make it to actually being bored, you've passed the biggest hurdle you'll ever face in your life, because the 1/3 and 30%, then, if I can get my maths right, 30% of conceptions are aborted. So that is the biggest killer. And we don't have a conversation in the UK. You're right, Nick. In America, there's a conversation, it's a heated conversation. Yeah. But actually, we have never really had this full-on conversation in the UK.
Let me be very controversial now to get this debate going. Let me tell you who the most dangerous people are in this country. They're called pregnant mothers. Let me tell you who are the most misogynistic killers in this country. They're called pregnant mothers because they murder over 100,000 baby girls a year. So how dare you call me a misogynist? I don't go around murdering girls. You're the misogynist because pregnant mothers kill over 100,000 baby girls a year. But they're equal murderers because they also kill 100,000 baby boys as well. So they're not sexists because, they make sure they kill them equally. And I predict decades from now, there'll be riots on the streets in this country and protesters will be pulling down statues. And when you look at the protest posters, they'll have BLM on them. And BLM will not stand for Black Lives Matter. It will stand for Both Lives Matter.
I'm with you 100%, Nick. And we will leave this because it's a huge topic, but 100% agreement with you. And I know that our viewers, whether they're UK or US, will fully agree with that it's not just the mother who is involved in that process. It's actually another individual, and that is the baby. That's just another person, and that's the father. So, but conversations are not had around that, and the devastation it does, I'm assuming, to grandparents as well, who lose their grandchildren. But I will not, because I could do this for the next hour. Let's move on to stateside, just in case the Warren Posse think we've forgotten about what's happening over there. We do have enough madness in the UK, but don't worry, you also have a share of it stateside. And this is Donald Trump's security breach sparks another Secret Service investigation after agent left to breastfeed her child. I didn't think that Secret Service had a bring your child to work. I mean, there's some jobs where maybe that may work, and that's fine. I didn't think actually protecting the president would be a job where you'd bring your kids along to. But I mean, educate me. Maybe I'm wrong, Nick.
If you had told me this in a pub, I'd have laughed and then thought it was a joke and you're lying. You're making it up. You're just exaggerating. But this is where we are now in the West. That the things we'd have laughed about 10 years ago and we thought never would come to pass are now here. And now policy in the Secret Service that you can take your baby to work and breastfeed your baby while you're trying to protect potentially the future president of the United States, who was also a former president. Who signed this policy off? Who thought this was okay? And it's the stupid people, isn't it? It's the be kind people. So not only are we giving women jobs in the Secret Service, and most of them are nowhere near as competent as men because of their strength, because of their size, but we're also now encouraging them to take their babies to work. This is just mental. I just can't get my head around this. And the mother is taking her baby to a place where she knows not half the country, there's many thousands of people in America who would like to blow up that building because Donald Trump's in it. So now we're taking babies into dangerous situations, and we know there's terrorists who will blow that building up. Isn't it a mother's job to protect her child from everybody and to make sure her child never is in danger? But we're taking him to work to be killed. I've got no answers for this. I've got no answers.
I mean, any parent is scratching their head wondering why you would bring. And I've been to 3 Trump rallies, and you see the security detail there, and obviously they're supposed to be there to put themselves in the way of harm. I don't know whether that means you kind of have a baby holder and your baby also I don't know if the baby catches the bullet instead of the mother. You kind of wonder what is happening in someone's head, but I guess this is diversity, inclusion, equity to the nth degree, and bring your baby to work to protect the president from someone shooting him.
Well, that's what this is. This is DEI at the extremes. We're going to start employing Secret Service agents now in wheelchairs. we're now going to employ Secret Service agents who are blind. Because where does this stop? Once you decide you're not going to recruit on merit, where does this stop? Let's 15% of the American population are below average intelligence, idiots. So do we have to represent them now in the Secret Service? Because I tell you what, I think they are. I think they already are. So that's a box they can tick. All recruitment should always be done on merit. And then you avoid all these problems then. You're either good enough or you're not. Simple. Binary. But we don't like binary anymore now, do we?
Well, I hope you haven't given them ideas of the next batch of Secret Service agents being blind, but we will look out for that. I wouldn't even want that for crazy Kamala. Never mind President Trump. You don't want that on anyone. You want people doing the best job, despite how you may feel about them individually. This is a great, and I'd seen this on James's profile. And this is about James S.A., who's a high-profile commentator here in the UK. Many people have seen him regularly on GB News. And he has had this fight with his educational establishment through his studies because he is critical of the gender madness that is being pushed upon us. Maybe... Do you want to touch on this, Nick? Because obviously he is won after a big bite, but no one should ever have to go through this process of having to defend common sense views, because if this is the case and we are moving towards that, then no one with common sense views will be able to be educated in the UK or anywhere.
Yeah, from what I can remember, he was a second year student at university doing psychology or psychiatry, something like that. And when they found out his gender critical beliefs were known, he was kicked off the course. So first of all, he's 2 years in debt. And on average, it's £50,000 a year in debt. So he's £100,000 in debt. He's now been kicked off the course. So he cannot get the qualification to practice what he wanted to practice, to pay his debt off. So now he's been kicked off. So very brave man, he decided, I'm not having this. So Free Speech Union took his case on. He's been fighting it for 3 years. Nobody without the support of the Free Speech Union could afford to fight this for 3 years. Their aim is to wear you down, is to bankrupt you. You've got no more money, no more solicitors' fees. You've got to drop it and walk away. That was their end game in this. We'll fight him so hard, he'll go away eventually. But he didn't go away. Strong man, James. And then after 3 years, which is also the punishment of having to fight it for 3 years, that's the punishment as well, because that scares everybody else. So everybody else is going, oh, James won. But it took 3 years, and that has a toll on you. My fight from cancellation lasted 5 weeks, and that had a toll on me. But 3 years is a whole new game. But he won. Got to court, put his case forward, and he won his case. Or it more looks like they eventually knew it was going to court, so they decided to settle out of court. So hopefully they've paid all his debts off. They've given him substantial damages. They've ruined his career, because he'll never be what he wanted to be, because he didn't pass the course, the 3-year degree course. It's a warning to all universities that you cannot do this to people. So many decades ago, 100 years ago, you were persecuted for being a Catholic. And then you had barriers in front of you in the 50s for being black and immigrant. And then you had barriers in front of you if you found out you were gay. And all these barriers were removed. But now it's socially acceptable to persecute you because of this new crazy stuff we happen to believe, but you don't. This new religion of woke. If you don't believe this, we'll persecute you, we'll ruin your life. You can't have this job. You can't come to this university. Whoever would have thought 20 years ago this ever would have been the case? And we're here, and it's persecution, and it's thought crimes.
It is, and I mean, my two thoughts on it are: I am astonished that any educational establishment would spend so much money, obviously, on fighting this and targeting someone. My other thought is, um, as much as I think Toby Young has not been engaged in a number of issues, actually credit to him and to the FSU for being involved, because an individual, very few of us, I certainly couldn't go up against the legal system because it is so expensive. And actually, well done for the FSU and standing beside him. But it's madness that our educational system is spending the money on this instead of actually educating people, which is surely their role.
It's not their role anymore.
Yeah.
University changed 20 years ago. Their whole reason to exist changed 20 years ago. So a friend who used to work, he does now for some reason, because he's got gender critical views, used to work in the university sector. And he told me this, which I've never forgotten, it explains it all. He said to me, 20, 30 years ago, students were the product of a university. Now students are the customer. And everything is explained in that little phrase there. Universities were successful because they produced people that the market wanted, that society wanted, because they had skills and they improved the country, they improved everyone else's lives because they were good at something. Universities now are just businesses. Doesn't matter what they produce. All they care about is each student, because each student is worth £9,000. So to keep that student, we'll do anything. We'll make your courses easier. We'll make sure you don't drop out. We'll make sure we don't fail you, because you're worth £9,000 to us. And since you've been a customer, my salary at university has doubled. And it's amazing now working at universities. We've got more money than what we know to do with, because all you students are just giving us money. When you leave university now, you're almost unemployable, and you're in 50 grand's worth of debt. You'll never pay it back. You're stacking shelves at Tesco because your degree is worthless. 30 years ago, that degree meant you as a somebody, meant you were the top 20% of intelligent people in the country. So we gave you a job just based on the fact you had a degree. I don't employ people now if they've got a degree or if they don't have a degree. Makes no difference to me as an employer, because it means nothing. It tells me nothing about you. Universities have ruined themselves. And over the next 20 years, half of them have to go bankrupt because there's far too many people going. It's a Ponzi scheme and it's about to collapse.
No, it is. There are three other stories we want to touch on, so let's give them 3 or 4 minutes each. And it was this one, actually, I hadn't come across this at all, Nick. So thank you for sharing the madness of the city that I live in, which is London. And this is HMICFRS, which is, and I've come across them a lot before, which is Her Majesty's Inspectorate of Constabulary and Fire and Rescue Services. Take that for a long title. Yeah. Our latest inspection of the Met Police has been published today. We found that the force has improved its response to the public, but there are serious concerns over how it investigates crime and manages offenders and suspects. I did think that was the role of the police, but inadequate. The Met Police law is inadequate on investigating crime, and it requires improvement on preventing crime. It's not doing anything about it outstanding or good. I guess pride festivals don't actually fit into that. They can't actually legally put that there. But I was blown away by this, Nick, at the... I mean, the emperor has no clothes. Everyone is pointing out. It is plain for all to see, and everyone nods and just carries on as normal on this body, which is a quasi-governmental body that oversees the police. Mm. They're pointing out they fail. I was like, okay, let's carry on. I didn't see this being reported anywhere in the press, so thank you for putting this up.
And that's the problem, isn't it? The fact you weren't aware of it. 20 years ago, this would have been front page news. 20 years ago, the chief constable in London would have lost his job. The mayor would have resigned. What happens now? Nothing. It's as if no one cares. And no one cares because we know what ought to be true. What's the point of reading that report just to be told that the Met Police are failing? Yeah. Well, do you know what? No shit, Sherlock. You didn't have to write a report. You could have given me 20 quid. I'd have told you that for 20 quid. The Met is failing. All our police forces are failing. Throughout the country, all of them are failing. And we know they are, and we do nothing about it because, again, stupidity from politicians, but also because of the woke agenda. They may be failing in their aim of reducing crime and detecting crime and locking up criminals, but they're excelling at being woke, at being gender friendly, at being Islamic friendly, as in attending pride marches. We're doing great at that, but you know what? You don't get judged on that because we don't care. But everything the public want you to do, you're failing or you're not good enough. Same with Greater Manchester Police, because I ran a few months ago to be Mayor of Greater Manchester, which means I've been in charge of the police. And now crime was going to be one of my priorities. And nowhere are the police dealing with the priorities of the people who pay their wages. And it's not the police officer's fault. It's senior management, and it's always the politician who runs the police. They're to blame.
No, completely. And let's bring up this, which shows a discrepancy in what the police are actually doing. And you put this up as two separate stories, and I've just stuck them together in the Croydon Guardian. You've got Sutton man 61 who chanted, "Who the F is Allah?" is jailed for 18 months. That was on the 13th of August. And then last month in July, 2 asylum seekers who stole £25,000 gold Rolex in London Soho allowed to walk free. And that's from LBC. And then they say, have you been a victim of watch theft? Well, I don't think there's any point in reporting it. But it is this: Islam has a protected status. The police are busy policing tweets, ignoring actual crime. I think these two, which you'd put up, are in stark contrast and really show us where we currently are in the UK.
Yeah, so those two stories there are not really police stories. They're criminal justice stories. The police did their job. They arrested the watch thefts, and they arrested someone who they thought was inciting violence at a demonstration. They did their job. They arrested people. It's down to the courts then. So the 2 asylum seekers stealing watches, they weren't sent to court. And I probably can guess the reason. No places. So all the magistrates have been get sent memos every month about stop sending people to jail if you can help it, because we've got no places. Magistrates got a memo from the Home Office 2-3 months ago saying, do not send rapists to jail if you can help it, because we've got no places. Do not send rapists to jail. Can you believe that? Wow. But if it's politically convenient and politicians will get a benefit from it, then we can release thousands of criminals early to free up spaces to send non-violent people to jail if they happen to be white and happen to be at demonstrations and riots to do with about mass immigration. Now, I'm not saying that gentleman shouting "Who the F is Allah" should or should not be sent to jail. I don't know. But if he's sent to jail, then those Rolex thieves should be sent to jail, because that's some of the people they robbed were hurt. And they had special police operations trying to find them, because they were doing it for a long time. But we get case after case after case after case who are not sent to jail, and the public think they should be sent to jail. And then we get cases where people are sent to jail and some of the public go, why are they sent to jail? This is damaging our criminal justice system. This is damaging our belief that our system works. And if we break down our criminal system, our criminal justice system, and people believe it doesn't work, that leads to vigilantism, because people then go, the system will not get me justice. So I'm going to take a baseball bat and I'm going to deliver justice myself. And again, that's the beginning of the end. And we're seeing that on the streets in some communities at the moment, where they're walking their communities with sticks and baseball bats and swords and knives going, we protect this community. Again, that shouldn't happen anywhere in the UK.
No, completely. And I will, I'll not delve into them, but I would simply say that if you are of one faith, then you've rejected a different faith, and you should have the right to critique, especially if you don't believe it's real. But hey, whenever if a fairy tale, which many people believe different religions are, is protected, but I'll not get into that. Being saved by the bell on that one. Let me bring up the last one, which again I hadn't seen, and I really appreciate Nick bringing this up. And it's one of the good things about whenever you have a guest on, you jump in. Actually, there are one or two things that I hadn't come across, and that's why Nick does what he does. That's why we do what we do. And it is these figures on jobs. I'll bring this up and I'll bring up the graph as Nick speaks. But Indian and Nigerian nationals filled more jobs in Britain between 2019 and 2023 than UK nationals. And sometimes you read stuff, Nick, and you think, are you sure? I mean, when I have David Vance on, there's always at least one post he does. I have to think, David, are you pushing what's correct or not? And you look at it and think, oh, actually, he's right. Yeah. And this is another one, but it is bonkers that we have more foreigners actually coming here and having jobs than Brits. No wonder Brits feel angry. No wonder we've seen what's happened over the last 3 weeks if actually there are no jobs available or Brits are not being given jobs.
Absolutely. This story, for me, is about government incompetence.
Yeah.
I do not blame people from Nigeria or India coming here to get a good job.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't they if it's being offered to them? Why wouldn't they? The problem here is a lack of government planning. What this is about a government, many governments with no backbone, who will not tackle our unemployment issue. We've got nearly 10 million people in this country on some sort of out of work benefit. 10 million. What are we doing with them? Some of them will be lazy. Some of them will be scroungers. Some of them will be unskilled. Some of them have been dumped on benefits and don't know any other way of life. Some of them will have mental health issues and a bit of support can come off that. Some will be disabled. Lots of jobs we can do when you're disabled, depending on what your disability is. But it's easier for governments to dump them on benefits so they lead a poor, miserable life, most of them, but then are not a problem. And to fill the new jobs we're creating, this country is amazing. We're still creating jobs all the time. And to fill those job vacancies, we keep importing more and more migrants who nobody wants. The public do not want migration. But to make their jobs easier, the government's jobs easier, they will just keep importing people. Where the solution is easy. The solution is to end mass migration overnight. And then we tell businesses, you've got to mechanize, you've got to modernize, you've got to create better jobs. And if you need that vacancy filling, train local people, create apprenticeships to get people to do those jobs. Wages will go up, great for everybody. And the government then needs start forcing people off benefits. You can't force people off benefits into a poorly paid job because they're better off on benefits. And I don't want to make people poor and give them a worse life. But let's start increasing wages in this country by reducing and ending mass migration. Watch wages shoot up, and it's easier then to push and force people off the benefits into those jobs. That's how we do it. But that takes a leader. That takes someone brave. That takes someone with a backbone and a vision for the country. That takes someone who prioritises British people over their career and over their personal convenience. It takes a statesperson. It takes a Thatcher. It takes a Churchill. It takes somebody who will go down in history as a great English person. But we don't have any of them, do we?
No, vision and backbone are two things missing, certainly in the British Parliament. And let me just put up that was the one of the graphs from the article, which really hit me. And this is the percent change in employment by nationality. And you have to go all the way along to the middle, and the UK slightly increasing. But hey, you've got all those nationalities from Nigerian all the way down to, well, just above the UK is Ireland, Cyprus, Croatia. And it's a strange situation, something that you wouldn't expect to find anywhere else, and yet we find here. Nick, always appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much. I'll just play a little clip just for the viewers to smile at. This is, Nick put this up, an altercation between a security guard and someone attacking him in the shop. Maybe this is what we need to fix our theft issues. Here it is. That was some bicycle kick, and maybe not would be advocating that, but actually, if only our security guards were allowed to do what they're supposed to.
I do advocate that.
Yeah.
I absolutely advocate that. That's what I want to see in every Tesco's and Asda's and Starbucks I go in Manchester city centre. I want to see a security guard who, if there's violence, reply with violence and knock them out. Because that gentleman on the floor has learned a lesson today. He won't be so quick next time slapping a security guard, and so he shouldn't. I'm tired of treating criminals like victims, and how we educate criminals is sometimes through violence.
It's true, and if we saw it happen around every Tesco's and Sainsbury's and supermarket, then actually the crime rates would utterly collapse. Nick, love having you on. People will obviously follow you at Nick Buckley MBE, and obviously your Substack, nickbuckley.mbe.substack.com, and obviously also on your YouTube channel. So really appreciate you coming and joining us today.
No, excellent. Thank you. And hopefully you'll have me back on again soon.
Absolutely. Always stuff to talk about. And it's always good to people who speak common sense and call out the BS. Absolutely. So thank you, Nick.